Welcome to a lesson with Dr. Powell. Let's talk about an idea called compound interest. So this is kind of a funny notion in some sense. What we're doing is we have a certain amount of money, perhaps in an account or a fund or a loan or something like that. And every so often, we're going to be compounding. What does that mean? Well, that means we're going to be increasing it by a certain percentage. Um, Now, to increase something by like 1%, what would we do? What would you do? You'd multiply it by 101%, right? 1.01 as a percent. So that would be 101% of A is just to multiply 1.01 to A. So that means you've increased A by 1% if you multiply by 1.01. 1.02, if you multiply it by it, you've increased A by 2%. So compound interest means that we're compounding. That means we multiply by a certain percentage this way, like 102%. That's what it means to compound. Well, we're going to be compounding a certain number of times a year. Suppose that we want to compound 4 times a year. So we want to multiply by something 4 times. Let's suppose we are multiplying by 1.02 4 times a year. So A times 1.02. So in 1 year, you would have multiplied by 1.02 4 times. So you'd multiply it by, so A times 1.02 to the 4th power. And that's what happens after 1 year. Of course, if you're thinking after T years, then this is what you would want, right? You'd raise that whole bit to the T. So 1.02 to the 4T, where you've compounded 4T times in 4 years. Because every year you compound 4 times. So after T years, you've compounded 4T times. So you're going to be multiplying by 1.02 4T times. If T is the number of years and 4 is the number of times that you're actually compounding. Okay, great. Now for some terminology. Oftentimes, what we would say is we'd say we have an 8% compound interest rate. And then we say, and we say 4 times a year. Believe it or not, this statement right here is exactly what we just wrote down right here. That's why it's funny. 8% has nothing to do with what's happening in reality here at each compounding. Except it kind of does, and we'll discuss the relationship. However, it's deceiving. We say 8%, but we're really not compounding with a 8% growth anywhere. Actually, every time we compound, we grow by 2%. We multiply by 1.02. Then why in the world do we say 8% when we really mean that we're multiplying by 1.02? It's because we take 8% and we divide it by 4 to get 0.02. So that's the real percentage that we have in the compounding. The rest of this is just terminology and just the way things are said and worded. However, this is what really happens. You take the 8%, you divide it by 4, and that's really what we're multiplying by every time we compound. We have to do it 4 times in 1 year, so we raise it to the 4th, and then we have to raise it to the T right here to get the number of years. So actually, this equation right here, if we made it an equation, perhaps, if A is our beginning amount, which is often called the principal, so maybe we'll just change this a little bit. Use a P for principal. That's our starting amount. Okay, we get this, and oftentimes we could have, we use maybe A of T or A, kind of the ending amount here. What's the ending amount? What's the amount after T years in the account? after compounding it 4 times, we get this formula right here. A of t is equal to p times 1.02 raised to the 4t. Let's look at another situation. Perhaps we have compound interest rate. So compound interest rate, just say that, looks like circle, but compound interest rate. And suppose we have, let's do 6 times a year. And suppose we do 3% in interest rate. What would be the formula if our principal was actually $100? That's what we start with. So after 2 years, how much money do we have? Well, we could think of this as a function of amount. So this is really just A, but we write it as A of t to represent that A is going to be the output of a function here, where t is the input. So this is equal, and just realize that A is on the outside the parentheses. Okay, so this expression is really A. Okay, A is equal to 100 multiplied by, so 1 point what? Now it's not 3%. What do we have to do to 3%? We have to divide it by 6, which ends up being 0.005. So it looks like every time we compound, we're compounding by 1.005. That's what we're multiplying by. And we do it 6 times a year. And so we have 6t. That's how many times we've compounded. And that's what we're multiplying by each time. And so there's our formula. So that is how we can write down the compound formula for compound interest rate here. Thanks for watching.